Now, the new Ducati Monster was already pretty banging. It's got decent power, it's nice and light, and in my opinion, it's got the looks too. But come on, this is Ducati. They were always going to take it up a notch. And that's exactly what they did this week by announcing the new Monster SP. More performance, more bling, and of course, unfortunately, more money. In fact, it's almost nudging the Street Fighter V2 on price. So can it possibly be worth it over the standard Monster? Well, in this video, we'll go over the 10 key upgrades to find out. So the Testa Stretta V-twin engine with its 111 horsepower peak remains the same, as does the minimal aluminium front frame design, but the rest of the chassis and hardware gets a pretty significant bump in spec. Let's start with the suspension, where the standard Monster obviously left room for this up-spec'd SP version when it was launched last year. There's a 43mm upside-down fork up front, a preload adjustable monoshock at the rear, but that's it, no adjustability elsewhere, and you won't find the brand name anywhere on the Ducati spec sheet, so assume it's built by one of the cheaper suspension providers. The SP though, poof! The creme de la creme for this sort of bike, with an NIX30 fork from Öhlins and an Öhlins shock at the rear, so you've got to expect a significantly improved ride quality. And then there's the full adjustability for both, so you can get the bike absolutely dialed into your preference. And not only do Ducati claim better feel and cornering, but there's also 600 grams less weight on the Öhlins fork compared to the standard Monsters. That contributes to a reduction in total weight, and of course, less weight at the same power means more fast. Now, there's also a little more length and travel in that rear shock, and that tips the back end up. On top of that, they've used thicker foam on the seat, and so whereas the base bike sits at 820mm in standard form, 800 with the low seat, and 775, which is super low with the suspension lowering kit, the SP is at a way more lofty 840mm. You can also go up by another 10mm with the high seat accessory, and you can still take it down to 810mm with the low seat, but there's no suspension lowering kit available for the SP. But anyway, the effect, well, you'll be more up and over the bars, of course, for a more aggressive and sporty riding position, which certainly seems to suit the character of this more aggressive and sporty bike. On top of that, there's now a Sachs steering damper, whereas the regular bike ships without one, and I guess that longer shock might have something to do with it. Naturally, pitching the bike up at the back will give it a bit of a different geometry, and indeed, a quick flick of the spec sheet reveals an ever so slightly shorter wheelbase and a more sporty rake and trail on this new SP model. So perhaps the damper is a bit of a necessity to remove any twitchiness more than a fancy new selling point, but Ducati still say it gives more precision in sporty riding, which I guess is true, so nicely put. Now, it ought to stop faster too with an upgraded braking setup. Not that the base bike's brakes are bad, you get 4-piston, radially mounted Brembo M4.32 monoblock calipers on twin 320mm discs and a radial master cylinder to boot. Brakes that you can be proud of. But again, the SP packs the best. It gets Brembo's top drawer Stylema calipers that were originally launched back with the Panigale V4 in 2017. Ducati claim more power and better feel, but also less weight, which is doubly important here as it's unsprung weight, so it allows the suspension to more easily do its job. They say that the calipers themselves drop 400 grams and the new aluminium disc flanges another 500, so that's 600 on the fork, 500 on your flange, and 400 on the calipers. Sounds like it's adding up to quite a bit of weight savings. Now, there's also a bump in spec on the rubber front too, with the latest Pirelli Rosso Diablo 4s on the SP, which were released just this year. But you do get Pirelli Rosso Diablos on the standard Monster, just the previous gen's stinky old 3s instead. So can there really be all that much of a difference? Well, they describe the 3 as a sport tyre for the road in both dry and wet conditions, and I've tested plenty of bikes on these tyres and always thought they were brilliant on the road. But Pirelli say that the 4 is more of a super sport tyre for the road with world superbike derived structures and contours. In fact, they claim more grip under braking, better cornering at extreme lean, and more traction driving out of the corners. So I think that's their way of saying that it's better before, during, and after the corners. So that's more grip everywhere. Now, I have done a track day on these tyres on a Z900 and they did feel excellent, but the only way to truly know if they're that much better than the 3s would be to actually ride them back to back, which I haven't done. And in any case, it's no reason to choose one bike over the other, because hopefully the bike's so good that you'll be wearing through them quickly anyway and swapping them out for something else. Now, another nice little buff for the SP is the UniSilencer, which definitely enhances the look of the bike. But a bit of a warning here, because there are two Unis in the accessories catalogue. One's a homologated slip-on, and that's the one that you get here, and it usually costs about 1,400 quid for that upgrade. It's approved for Euro 5 and for the US equivalent, so that's good news if you want to be on the right side of the law. But the downside is it's not going to sound quite as sweet as the proper racing silencer kit. That one costs 1,900 quid, but it's not road legal and it's marked as for closed course only. But man, does it sound sweet. Really weird how there's all these clips on YouTube of people doing closed courses and track days, but they've still got lane markings and road signs and stuff. But still, like I say, the homologated slip-on does look very nice. Just don't expect it to fully bring the thunder. So what about all these weight savings then? We have the fork, the brakes, and also they've fitted a lithium-ion battery, which is said to be another 1.7 kilograms less than the standard bike. So I had 0.6 plus 0.5 plus 0.4 plus 1.7 for about 3.2 kilograms of weight savings. But there must be gains elsewhere, because the dry weights for the two bikes, according to the Ducati spec sheets on the website, are exactly the same. It's only when you add liquids for some weird reason that the curb weight comes out 2 kilograms different. Still not as much as you might expect. If you're combing through the list of updates, you're not going to get that full 3.2, but I guess it's better than nothing. Now, electronically, the bikes are pretty similar, with a comprehensive suite of goodies that includes cornering ABS, Ducati traction control, launch control, wheelie control, and an up and down quick shifter. But on top of the two existing riding modes of road and sport on the standard bike, the SP now gets a new wet mode. Kinda surprising, because you'd probably expect the cheaper bike to get used and abused in the rain more often, but I guess it still might come in handy from time to time. In the wet mode, the peak power is reduced from 111 horsepower to 75, throttle response is softened up a bit, and the ABS and traction control intervention is in its keenest setting. All this beautiful stuff is wrapped up in a beautiful styling package that has a little more flair than the standard Monster. The gold anodization on the Öhlins fork and the yellow Öhlins shock, along with the Stylemma calipers and the UniSilencer, all add a little more bling to the hardware. There's a mini fairing and a passenger seat cover that usually come with the Monster Plus for a little more of a sporty vibe. The new livery is derived from Ducati's MotoGP bikes, so again, a bit more of their sporting edge with the 3 shades of red and gloss black. And there's a red saddle with a Monster SP logo, whilst the Ducati logo on the tank takes its design from the Panigale V4 with a slightly bolder look. All neat touches that definitely lift this bike above the standard Monster in terms of the visuals. So that price, 10,895 for the regular plain old Monster, 11,195 for the Plus version with the fairing and seat cover, and then 13,995 for this fancy pants SP model. Almost certainly, if you were going for the standard bike with the Terminioni exhaust at 1,400 quid, you'd be up to almost 12.5 grand anyway, and so the remaining 1,500 quid difference looks pretty good, considering you get fully adjustable Öhlins, the best of Brembo's brakes, and even better tyres. But 14 grand is a lot of money, and you can get a lot of bike elsewhere. Still, the KTM 890 Ducar at just 11 grand looks like an absolute steal. 10 more horsepower, also gets fully adjustable suspension, and the Brembo Stylemmas. But there's just one big problem. I'm sure regular viewers will be able to guess what I'm going to say, and that's the styling. It just ain't anywhere near as good looking as that Ducati. The proportions have always just looked a bit like wonky to me. Even though it's a brilliant bike to ride, one of my favorite bikes on the road, I just don't know if I could pull the trigger on one for that reason alone. But as always, I'd love to know which bike you'd pick down in the comments below. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.